We'll call to order the City of Monroe Planning Commission meeting for Monday, September 8th. Roll call, please.
Chair Dr. Holmquist, Mr. Greco.
Here.
Mr. Hansen.
Here.
Mr. Stein.
Here.
Mr. Kugel.
Here.
Mr. Hammer.
Here.
Ms. Devenish is excused, and all the conference
That's it. Okay. Moving on to item number 3, approval of minutes of August 25th, 2014. We have a no motions? Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Is there any edits, modifications? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, minutes are approved. Is there anyone here who wishes to appear on an item that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 5, unfinished business. Public hearing on request by Monona Park and Recreation Director Jake Anderson, represented by Doug Paul, Harold Eberly Architects, for improvements to Lottis Park 400 West Broadway, restroom facility, and fish cleaning station, parking lot grading and striping, boardwalk extension, and boat launch facilities. Now,
Oh, yikes. All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us back again. Since our last meeting and the first hearing on this, we did have Facilities Committee review of the project and had some great discussion on certain elements of the project, including the location of the automated fee station, and it was recommended that we change that location closer to the boat launch facility where the current drop tube is, and that was a recommended change by the Park and Rec Board. Also coming out of the Facilities Committee was a talk about having an additional concession stand and storage unit as part of the restroom fish cleaning shelter area, and that was talked about as an opportunity to be able to serve limited concessions such as bags of ice, water, Gatorade, soda, for the amount of boat traffic coming into the location. There was a lot of discussion on this becoming a premier destination point, given its location, given the amenities that we're proposing to have at the facility, and that we were looking at accommodating the amount of walk-in traffic that we're anticipating. That also included putting an additional boarding dock. So we have a launch dock on the main facility, and Brad Schultz from Veerbecker can show that on the map, but an additional pier dock for boaters coming off the water to utilize the restroom and the concession area, so they won't be jamming up the traffic for loading and unloading of boats. And I believe those were all the changes. Alder Bussey, correct me if I'm wrong, those were the 3 kind of main points that came out of the Facilities Committee meeting.
was that also the discussion about the...
Yeah, the invasive species removal station, there was discussion about that, the potential operational difficulties in maintaining a high-pressure hot water. There was questions about whether it was contingent to put that in with the grant, and it was not. And so we had looked at just doing just a regular garden hose that we could have there for people to wash their boats off. It would save probably a lot on training and potential maintenance of a high-pressure, high-volume type of pressure washer that had some questions on where it would be located, how it would be stored, how it would be utilized. So that was those. Recommendations by the Facilities Committee were all accepted by the Park and Recreation Board at our last meeting. So we are here tonight for hopeful approval with final design bid documents ready to go for January 2015 bid date. I can just show this quickly as a architectural rendering of kind of the change. And so the of the building would not change. It would be extended out a little bit side to side. So we were limited as far with the archaeological boundary to the north on where we could place the building, but we had some flexibility on going east-west. So we would still maintain the size of the shelter, and the fish cleaning station would be the same. It would just be adding the extra space to the side of the one restroom. And I can put this down, and I don't know if this, Sunny, did this get in the packets?
Yes.
Okay. This is a lot of engineering language and design that I would let Brad address any questions that you might have on grading and environmental issues with that document.
We have received Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources concurrence for the sediment storage and treatment on the site, and we have also received numerous permits and a couple more permits to go for the site. The additional pier to the west of the boat ramp has to be approved and submitted to the DNR yet, along with the dredging and canoe and kayak launch. Otherwise, everything else has been approved so far to date. The additional pier will give anywhere between 4 and 6 more slips for boats to park, just to use the facility and not clog up the ramps of the boats loading and unloading. The automatic fee station, actually I think I have it on this one. The automatic fee station has been moved down by the kiosk, down in this general direction, so all the information can be relayed and boaters and people parking can understand what's going on and more easily use the facility. And and then we still have a staging area here where the wash station was, even if, depending on what we decide to do with the wash station, there's still an area to load and unload your boat and tie it down right there. The hope is that we can use the canoe and kayak launch down here in front of the new pier to get those people out of the way for the boaters and the actual boat ramp themselves. And we also added some more trees to the landscaping plan, some swamp oaks along there, and we changed to prairie fire crabapple trees throughout the parking lot now.
And the rain garden mix
Yep.
is in the
Yep.
dotted green areas. And I believe you would have gotten that landscaping plan along with the packet.
Anything else?
I think that's about it.
Good, okay. Well, thanks. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this item? If not, if you guys want to hang around, we'll close the public hearing section. Move on to 5B, which is a consideration of action on the request.
Was last reviewed in a pre-hearing conference at the July 14th Plan Commission meeting, and changes were made as described. The plans were also reviewed by our consulting engineer, also with Verbicker, for compliance with erosion control and stormwater management sections of the code, and approval is recommended with 4 conditions, 2 of them regarding those recommendations from Darren Pope at Verbicker. And if there are any questions on those comments, he's here and available for questions.
Thank you. Commission members, comments? Go ahead. Alder Holmquist?
Jake, can you talk about some of how the fee station will work? Previously, I thought it was going to be by parking stall number, but if you're getting your boat off your trailer, it seems like you'd be buying your ticket then, but you might not know where you're parking. So
Correct. Yeah, we had initially discussed that, and then after evaluating what the options were, we don't really necessarily care where they park as long as that they've paid and that the receipt that they have is in their windshield. So that will save money on, striping or signs, but yeah, it's, as long as they just, it's almost like, when some of the downtowns don't have a number on them, you just get your sticker and it's good for, that day. So we're more interested in that it's paid and then the date is highly, is visible, so our attendants and police department can see it that it's today and not yesterday and they're back again.
So will we eliminate all the marking for stalls?
Yeah, they'll still have the
Numbers.
parking stalls, but no like numbers,
No numbers.
on the pavement.
All right, thanks.
Anything else, sir? Mr. Omber?
First, I think it looks great. You have a really good job with this. This is going to be awesome for the area. I had a couple minor questions. You're reusing boulders. You have curb everywhere you have the boulders. It's fine with me if you don't put boulders there, but you realize it's a maintenance nightmare to go down and look at your boulders now. It's hard to trim around them. You get invasive species growing around them, saplings. I mean, why do you want to put the boulders there?
That was one of the preliminary comments we heard, was either more signage or some kind of deterrent to keep people from from hopping over the curb.
But you have a curb.
Curb, yes.
So somebody would have to
Hop the
physically
curb,
hop the curb
yes.
to get up there to drive off the parking lot.
Yep. And the fact that there's already boulders on site where we're putting bollards.
I just worry it's going to look, I mean, it's really your call.
Maybe we
It's going
can
to look on
just
Jeff.
put a mulch bed around that whole length of it.
Unless there was
You have
somebody
some-
here that wanted boulders?
There's some landscaping around them too, I think, right? Some Carl Forster.
Some grasses.
Just for example, on Friday night at Fireman's Park, we have curb and gutter there, and someone drove their vehicle over the curb and gutter and down into the detention pond.
You can't fix that.
It's, I think the concern is that, and I'm personally fine with it either way, that the parking there has been so chaotic and people park up and on that mound, and we anticipate that the lot will be full many times in the weekend, and looking at just all ways that we can deter people from trying to go up and over, because that area right in here, as you drive in, mainly more of this area here, could be that like, oh, this is full, let's sneak back up here like we always did for the last 20 years. You'd hope curb and gutter would stop it, but
Probably not.
I've gone over, I just see it as, well, I mean, you could drive over curb and gutter with a truck, no problem. And I guess someone that's not, be great if we had an overflow lot to accommodate
I know
additional.
it's hard to
Yeah.
have enough people to maintain everything.
Right.
And that's a lot of handwork, so.
Yeah.
You might have other options there. The boardwalk materials, are those going to match the O'Hara Cove boardwalk?
Correct.
Where you have the gray concrete, the colored inserts, or how are you planning on doing that?
It's gonna match whatever's at Tresta. So whatever the Tresta boardwalk is on this side, it'll match that.
Room finish,
Yeah.
great.
I think it's downgraded theirs from what we had done on all the other boardwalks around River Place and all that. We had a little more detailing there. So
Sure.
You're not gonna pick that back up?
I think we would probably pick up what is at, to mesh it in with Tresta as being kind of the connector of the.
Basic
the
grade
two.
room concrete.
Yeah.
Okay. And then have you had any feedback from the fire chief yet about your fire lanes? Or what are you anticipating doing there? Is that a question for Darren?
That was one of my comments, that
Maybe would it be all right to get his
Aaron,
comments?
do you want to come up and, yeah.
Going all out then.
I do know we have a fire hydrant within 300 feet of the building, which is required by.
Yeah, that was one of my comments on the site layout, is that because the building is set back more than 100 feet from the public road, that then they would have to have a fire lane, and that the final site plan should show the locations, the widths, and the markings of the fire lane.
Has Chief Sullivan seen it, or does he make the final determination, or who does?
Yeah, he would.
Okay. My question was, because there's quite a lot of stuff going on here, there isn't a lot of area for it, and to be 20 feet from the structure here that's a little closer, is that gonna be all right with them? And then you have the entry right here, which could serve as other side, this is the other side, so I'm just curious if this will work, or if he's somehow gonna wanna get down here and go through that island for a fire, and I would doubt it. But technically, the way it's laid out right now, it wouldn't work, correct?
Well, I think that,
It's be 20 foot wide, a minimum of 20 foot from the structure.
right.
And I don't believe you've got 20 foot of pavement here, 20 feet from the structure.
Correct. But the 20 foot from the structure, that has been not an issue with him on other
Good,
sites.
okay. That was the root of my question.
Okay.
Because I think you have a great layout here. I think it's very workable. I would assume it would work, but I just wanted to make sure before you get too far along that we're good with that. Is there anything else in particular on this you wanted to comment on?
I guess just, the plans as submitted were preliminary. They're about 90% complete in terms of the things that I look at, the site grading and so forth. So there's some additional spot elevations that need to be done. There's contours to show, you know, what the goal is. You can see the slopes and so forth, but there's some more spot elevations that need to be put on, especially for the 88 parking space as an access route to the building.
But overall, we're pretty good between the two of you, and we're not worried about detention.
That was one of the comments that I
saw
thought
that.
maybe I'd want a little
Yeah.
feedback from the Plan Commission on.
Typically, we're right on the Yara River, and at this point, usually the detention's a couple things, but it's for our facilities and right on the Yara River. Sometimes it's nice to get that going before all other storm sewer gets there.
Right. And I noted in my letter too that traced on the water right next door, when the Plan Commission reviewed that, they had noted
Yeah, I'd
that,
spoken
as
with
Chris was-
Dane County
as you were
about it.
saying, that you spoke to Dane County, that the site's not utilizing any of the city storm sewer system.
Correct.
And the goal of the ordinance is for rate control is to keep the storm sewers in the city manageable size.
And all the public facilities, but that's such a massive waterway, it's almost better to get that water going downstream before the big push hits from all the storm sewer systems, conveyance systems. So they thought it almost was better to get that stuff out.
Right. And so I just wanted to confirm that again on this site, which is adjacent, that you have the same thought on that.
Thanks. I think it looks great. Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Brown?
No, good, thank you.
Rob, did you?
I had a couple questions about, where's the crushed red granite going?
That would be going in between the curves here, just so it doesn't have to be mowed and people can walk over it. And there will be grasses in there as well.
Okay, yeah, it looks heavily planted, I think. You have about 900 1-gallon perennials and grasses. Which is great. I love lots of plantings, but you only have one flowering perennial out of your 1 gallons, out of almost 1,000. To mix it up and have a little bit more diversity, I think would be good. I know you have a lot of plugs that have blooming things, but just to spruce it up and make it look a little nicer, more all season, something to consider. And then there's the median at the entry. Is that all granite in between there as well?
That is Trasta's.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yep. Everything you can see to the west of that green line, the heavy green line here, that will all be constructed this fall here very shortly.
Okay. Okay. Other than that, I think it looks really great. I think you guys did a really good job. Congratulations again on the grant. Just when it comes to the construction of the rain garden, especially on the northwest side, just to finesse that so it doesn't get built at that shape, I think would be great. Other than that, I think it looks great.
Thank you. Any other, Mr. Kugel, any comments?
Yeah, thanks for relocating that fee station. I think that's a good idea. That's where they usually are at boat launches. Thanks for doing that. I'm going to go over a couple of good ideas. Putting that side pier in there for people that come in and use the facilities, because I've used this park and people jam up at the launch dock to go up and use the bathroom. So that's a super idea. Extending the pier so you can stack a couple boats there when you're going to get your car. Another great idea. Otherwise, they're just going to be idling out in the middle of the lake. So I like everything. I want to ask Brad. You said you got most of the permits. Did you actually get permits to fill those couple of wetland areas?
Yes.
Wow, good for you.
Those are secured.
That's great.
We, like I said, we still have to get the dredging permit.
That's what I was going to ask you. Did you get the dredging? Should not be an issue though.
A preliminary analytical analysis are fine.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask.
That it
Is it
can be
clean?
landfilled,
But
or doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be
landfilled, that
clean
would be-
fill?
Yeah.
Is the city gonna clean out the sedimentation pond as part of this revamping of the park? Is that part of the project?
Yeah, the estimates right now are somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 yards of material being used.
Okay, and then I think also getting away from that hot, I've been to a lot of boat launches that have these cleaning stations for your boat, and they're all water. They're all cold water with a hose. If you put a hot water pressure washer there, people are probably washing their cars there on the weekend. No, and then question, how, the thing where you're gonna have all the plantings, the 800 plantings, how wide is that planting area? Do you know? I couldn't see the dimensions. Yeah, that one.
Back of curb to back of curb, there is 3 or 4 feet, I believe. But the 800 plantings are going in the rain garden areas and along the shoreline here.
Oh, not in between, not in
Right.
that little run. Okay, because the kind of vehicles that pull boats, they'll go right over the top of the
Yep.
plantings.
So there's no plantings in that?
Yeah, there are. That's
Grasses.
that's the perennial grass area. And the plugs are,
They're real
In
they're short,
latches.
yep.
short plantings.
Carl Ford. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Carl Forster.
No, you don't have that in there. In that section anyways.
They're just, if it's tall, it's gonna get knocked over by the bumpers of the trucks. That's all I'm saying. They don't stop there. But otherwise,
The thing that we did change, and it was a good suggestion from people, using the facility, and Brad, is that concrete pad that you access the gangway here, when it gets high water, it tends to get kind of flooded out, and so you're hopping over,
Right.
2-3 feet of water, and so we pulled that back and raised it up, and so it's well past the 100-year, flood mark, so we shouldn't have an issue with, pedestrian access coming down on the pier itself, which is another big complaint that we got from people, is that how much you can do when the water's high, but the change of the ramp.
a small concession area is great, good idea. Everybody's gonna want to buy ice for their boats.
Yeah.
And other things, soda, water, that stuff, it'll pay for itself over time.
Anything else, Mr. Kugel?
No, that's it. I think it's great.
Dorschel, anything?
Nope.
Ganzer?
Nope.
A couple questions. You'll be coming back on the site sign, the park sign? Because it's, right now it's parallel to Broadway, and I'm wondering if it would be better off being perpendicular. And of course, the landscaping that you have around it, I'm assuming it'll probably be branded the same way the other signs you put in, but I just give some thought to making it perpendicular. And then directional to flow traffic. When somebody comes in, they would take a right and then a left and come down that center lane, right? But is that clear to folks? Are you going to have some directional signs so that people know, and maybe that's part of the sign package that you come back with, but make it real easy for people not to make, or is it there and I'm missing it?
Stripage on the pavement for either going straight around or left here, but I do think, yeah, we would.
I just make it crystal clear so that there's not, making it real easy for folks. Otherwise, thanks for, responding to the suggestions. Appreciate it, and this is going to be a nice addition for the city of Monona. Mr. Kugel.
Just one last thing, Darren, thanks for the letter, because it clarified a whole bunch of things for me that we don't have to ask a lot of questions about stormwater, because it's all in here. So it's a nice summary.
Is there a motion?
Approval, conditions 1 through 4 is written by staff. Condition 5, that the revised landscaping be submitted to staff for final review. And condition 6, that directional signage be submitted to staff for final review. And I'd like to add 2 findings of fact. Finding of fact 1, that the expansion of the Lottis Park is a key element in the Broadway Corridor Plan. And finding of fact 2, the plan meets the Yahara Boardwalk Plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
No,
Okay, we'll move on to item 6, new business. 6A, public hearing and request by Global Presence Ministries for a zoning permit to occupy the building at 6406 Bridge Road for a church use. Good evening. Who would like to, okay, come on up, sir. Welcome. And just name and address so we know.
So my name is Stephen, and this is my wife Renee Springer. We're the senior leaders of Global Presence Church and Community Center. And so we're here today to answer any questions you guys have. And actually really looking forward to be here in Monona, honestly. So we were out in Windsor, and now we're back to this area again. We've got a campus location as well down on Mifflin Street, so but it's good to actually be back.
Good.
Back in the city.
Good, thank you. You want to just give us a brief rundown? It's being recorded so folks can say it, but a little brief rundown as far as what the planned use is. And,
so the use is going to be it'll be our church location, so that's where we'll gather for our Sunday gatherings. It'll also be really kind of see it to be a community, kind of a community center, and that'll serve both the community of Monona as well as just even the people that are within our congregation. In that we'll have Bible studies that'll happen a couple nights during the week. We've got a couple different school teachers within our congregation that really have a heart's desire to do tutoring and after school kind of club kinds of things. One teaches Spanish, other one actually wants to teach reading. And she even said even with the things that she liked to do with reading would be even for adults that maybe even have trouble reading. Also in that too, we've got our prayer, and then also Mark and his wife are both attorneys, and they've been using our downtown location doing a free legal clinic, and just those that just need free legal advice come on in and ask questions they do, and they've been doing a great job with that. So we definitely see an ongoing thing with that as well, because it really has been a good service to both the community, and we're even, hopefully that's something we can even put within the Monona newspaper, just making people aware if you just need some legal advice, and they're not gonna contract you, that they just want to give the advice, and they've been doing just a great job with that. So in that too, we've got a training center, which we're just training and equipping people within our church, as well as other people that come in. We host some just gatherings that don't just affect Madison and Monona and Dane County. We draw people from Milwaukee and draw people from different places. And in that too, which I think is really good, because actually one of the hotels that we use already regularly is the Country Inn Suites. So pretty regular with the businesses here in Madison or Monona as well. So
good. Well, thank you.
We have a youth group that meets, so there's a youth center we're looking at, and also in that we have a very creative community, so we have creative arts, and we're looking at an art gallery, and we're dreaming a lot about the ways that we can incorporate the community with that as well, because we have a nice display area where we could have people just explore that more, and actually looking for some grants in that area as well. There's a lot of grants out there for creative arts to help with children and young adults with that as well.
Yeah.
So
again, it's a fun space. It's a pretty vast space. I mean, total it's almost 50,000 square feet. We right now have vision for the top floor, so that's really where we're focusing. But with that, yeah, we've got it all kind of planned out, and I think just like you guys do with all your planning is like we just want to dream and just get the vision before people so they can really grab a hold of it. So that's kind of why we really kind of laid out what we have on the blueprint that you have here. So
you'd also see on there dance and creative arts studio as well. That's all part of the art gallery and the dance and creative arts, along with our offices, which are currently at Mifflin Street. We move it into this area because our Mifflin Street is more of a campus focus now. So
and it's a considerably smaller
student
space.
groups down there. Yeah.
It's 1,600 square feet.
Yes. Used to be an old laundromat. So. Good. So let's see. I think that was everything in this. Our recording studio as well.
Yeah.
So it's all part of the creative arts part.
Okay.
A calming room, that's important.
Yeah.
For children.
Right. So.
Instead of private.
Well, thank you. Anyone else want to? Seeing none, if you just want to maybe stay there, we'll close the public hearing and move on to the pre-hearing conference on the request. Sonia?
A zoning permit is required for a change in use, and also when a building is vacant for 6 months or more. So both of those apply here in this case, and therefore it's here before the Plan Commission for review. It's a pre-hearing conference, so no action should be taken. and you can request additional information or plans or discuss any concerns such as parking or uses.
Thank you. Commission members, any comments? Mr. Ganser?
Is this that whole building?
That's-
the whole main level of that building?
That's the whole main level there, yeah. Yep. So it's just shy of 25,000 square feet.
And there's a whole basement?
There's a whole basement, same square footage. Yeah.
Mr. Dorschel?
How many formal services do you have each week?
So right now, formal services, we have the one gathering on Sunday, and then we also, right now with our Mifflin Street location, we've got 2 other gatherings that we do. And those are much more smaller attended. The Sunday morning is the main gathering. Yeah.
But we will be bringing those over to
Yeah.
this location. So it's gonna, be a couple probably 3 nights a week besides Sundays right now.
What kind of attendance do you generally have at these gatherings?
Yeah, so like our Sunday gathering right now, if we were to have everybody show up, right around, we've got a congregation of about 100 people.
Okay.
During the evening gatherings that we do, probably 20 that come to those gatherings, so.
Thank you.
And parking here is 170?
It's 181 spots.
181. Okay. Mr. Alder Holmquist, any comments?
No, most of my questions were answered through the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Google.
No comments. I did take a look at your website.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
Well, thank you.
And I see you have a grand opening in this building on Sunday, October 12th.
That's our plan. So make a decision. No, I'm kidding.
No, I don't have an issue with it at all.
Mr. Stein?
I have no issue. I think it'd be good to have a little life over there. It'd be good.
Stromberg?
We've had a lot of churches come through trying to shoehorn themselves into buildings that weren't big enough and didn't have nearly enough parking.
Right.
And they've been some tough decisions we've had to make. I'd say this is the first one we've had in a long time that you actually have adequate room and adequate parking. And I don't expect you have enough parking for a Christmas or Easter service, but you have enough parking for your normal operations.
Yeah.
It's really the first one I can remember that we've had like that, so it's nice to not have to sit here and tell you all the things you can't do. I think for what you're proposing, it should work just fine. And I guess my biggest question would be, since it's in this new potential redevelopment area, does the CDA need to take a look at this and have some input as to what's happening there?
We've discussed it with the building owner. As most people know, we have an option on that building that comes forth, I believe, March of 2016. And the church has a lease through next October, I believe.
Yeah,
Or
and
August.
then it'll go month to month at that
After
point
that.
until you guys have a decision. Yeah, so we're well aware of all of that that's going on. Yeah.
Because the way it sits, it's a perfect location for you. It's
Oh,
easy
good.
access
Oh,
right
it's
off the
wonderful.
Broadway
Yeah.
with adequate parking.
Yeah.
But you know, too, your limitations on parking. You have a lot there, but if we ever get to the point where you're large
Yeah.
enough where you need more, there's not anything for residential streets around there. It's just going to be
Yeah.
difficult if you ever
Yeah.
do that much. But,
Yeah. I know based on like the calculations that were given in it's
you're
7
fine.
square feet per
Yeah,
person,
no.
and which
the
would
way
actually
you're
house.
proposing right now, you're fine. It's
Yeah.
just something to look in the future. None of us know what's going to be there in 2 years anyway.
Right.
Be a great use for now.
Yeah, and like I said, we're really looking, how can we serve, this community as well? And that's really the big thing, is we really want it to be a community-focused, community outreach. Mike and Lynn Byler, they've been doing this amazing thing down on State Street. 14 years now, they've been feeding the poor, along with Mary Metcalf, Tom's daughter, and several others that are partnering in that. So, they're part of our congregation, and we just, again, we really want to be a blessing in being able to serve City of Monona, so.
Good.
Well, thank you. Well, this is the pre-hearing conference, unless there's no other feedback for the applicant. The next meeting, I would assume they would be back for final approval, correct?
Yep, September 22nd.
22nd, correct.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your interest
Thank
in
you.
Monona. You bet. Moving on to 7, miscellaneous business. Review of draft questions for comprehensive plan survey. Sonia.
At the last meeting, we agreed on some topics for the public survey for the comprehensive plan, and those topics are land use, transportation, housing, and a couple of general questions. So I put in a few questions under each one of those categories. I'm okay with another meeting on this, so if you have questions or requests for additional questions, different questions or deletions, it can come back on September 22nd.
Well, let's take land use first, obviously. Is there any feedback or comments on what's been proposed? Stromberg?
My feedback would be that I think you did a good job.
Mr. Kuvel and Mr. Stein?
Oh, sorry. Was there a survey very similar to this that went out a couple of years ago, though? I almost remember answering, there was an online survey that had a lot of these questions.
We had one in 2013. It was a citizen survey
Right.
as part of our strategic plan. And
Some of these questions might have been under, somewhat, but not really.
I actually took some of them from
Okay.
the 2004 comprehensive plan survey,
Okay.
and we could compare
Oh,
what
that's
the
fine.
responses were, but they're not similar to 2013.
No, I went through it, I thought it was fine.
Brian?
For just the land use section, a general comment for the first question specifically is, do we want to potentially break down the drive into sections? Because people may have different opinions based on different segments of the drive. So that's one piece of feedback. And then on question, I believe it's 4 and 5, it might be, is we're calling out locations by business rather than by location.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure if it kind of spills into, when I move into the Broadway questions, I said, can we use a map and refer to locations without naming businesses? Possibly. And number 9, how do you envision the site being developed? I would want to distinguish and clarify. I thought that we, in our request that we put out for qualifications, and the initial kind of pieces of that we kind of had some sense of use for that area, and I'm not sure if we want to present those general statements and then offer people space to make additional comment, or, because if we put it this way, I could see people could go in any different direction, but we already have a plan to go in somewhat of a direction. Those are my suggestions for that piece.
Thank you. Ganser?
I think it looks great. What does service mean under 1?
Service use could be salon, automotive, dry cleaner.
That was a pretty deep question, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe put something in
Well thought out.
parentheses.
I think it looks good. I mean, nothing to add.
I think the survey looks good, too.
Okay.
Some comments that with Alder Holmquist on 4 through 10, I'm just wondering, I really like the way 1 through 3, and I'm wondering, could we even stop after that? I mean, what feedback do we expect to get when we're asking people, what are they, and how would it be used if we say, what do you want to see for, the Riverwalk area, or between Dean and Lofty? I'm just wondering, and then if we call out one individual's lot and say, what do you want on Ruben's site? I struggle with that.
Isn't Habitat going in there?
As a rental. They're renting the space. He still owns it. But I'm just wondering and how this would be used and what would be gained by the information that we would get, and would the information be really useful to folks? Mr. Homburg?
I would take that a little further. If we do get down a very strong consensus, which I doubt we'd ever get from everybody, it should be this one particular use and nothing else. Would we go so far as to restrict somebody else's property, say the only thing you can ever develop there now is a whatever that comes out to be? I've said it many times, it's not, we try to craft how our city will grow in redevelopment, but we're somewhat reactive to what the property owner or the potential property owner brings into us. Is this an appropriate use? We're more so, will this work within our plan versus this would be our ideal scenario unless the CDA chooses to develop it, in which case then we have that type of say. So if there was a really strong consensus, the only way we could really do it was under CDA, I believe's authority, unless we had a much, much more restrictive zoning ordinance.
I like the comment that Alder Holmquist made about if we, we ask a broad question about Monona Drive, but maybe after the first three questions, if rather than identifying a specific lot or a specific business, if we said in the north section, what types of services or would you like to see, services or businesses or whatever would you like to see there? What would you like to see in this section? What would you like to, potentially see? And I think it's a little bit different way of trying to get the same information. But I'm not comfortable with saying, what do you want on Ruben's site? What do you want on Chief Auto Parts site? Is that kind of where you were coming from?
Yep.
Yeah. So and you got a lot here, and it's great. You did a great job, but I'm just wondering if we could trim it down a little bit. I don't. The only other item on number 3 was to have an F that would be other, if there's something that we hadn't thought of that they'd want to include. The rest of it, before we get off on the land use, any? Sir?
Just kind of more structure, what you alluded to on number 1. Do you want other, and if so, if this does go out to provide a space, a line, just to have that there. What motivates you to shop on Monona Drive? You don't have don't as an option. I don't know if you want that, because your next question asks, if you do not shop, why?
Yeah, right.
And then access to business. I wasn't exactly sure, I guess, what that meant.
For access to business?
Meaning?
I don't shop because it's difficult to get there, I guess is the way I took it.
Okay. And then just as I look at the 4 through 10, I like those. I agree. Once you get people answering this, you never know what they're going to say, and then that makes it more difficult how you catalog this information, I think. Doing specific sites, I would agree with some of the earlier comments. And I don't know if there's a way to break up choose one that applies questions or multiple choice sort of questions with some of the written answers. This becomes quite an essay page. Which if everybody takes the time to fill out, it could be very valuable. I just wonder how many will think about that. I think that's all I had for land use.
Thank you. Anybody else on land use?
So you're talking about getting rid of the individual, the cheap auto parts and
Rubens.
Kohl's Grocery and just create more general area questions? Is that true? I like that, at first I thought it was kind of odd, but the 2 other small downtowns, because that really kind of gives a big picture of people's perception of what they think is, kind of a warm and friendly downtown. That's a really good one to have in there.
Sonia, you want to say something?
I just had a couple of questions. So we thought maybe keeping number 7 and 10, for example, was okay. A general question on Monona Drive and a general question on Broadway. Is that what I heard? Or would it be removing all of these and kind of segmenting it, South Monona Drive, between Frostwoods and Nichols, and then between like 4 different segments on Monona Drive?
Does anybody object to keeping 7 and 10?
6, 7, and 10.
6, 7, and 10? And then the others, the direction was to segment it into like North Monona, South Monona, and then the Broadway. rather than specific sites. I see nodding heads, I see bobblehead night.
Yes.
That's plain.
Maybe more than 2 zones for Monona Drive.
Go ahead.
Not just the north and the south, but.
Where would you
some-
divide it?
I think that there's a 2009 Veerbeker Monona Drive corridor study that segmented the 4 parts of Monona Drive really well.
Vico did too.
Okay.
I think you may have to embed just a picture of Monona Drive somewhere on here, because I'll be honest, even myself, and I know, I'll say my wife, if you say north, south, middle, they won't know unless you have a picture to look at. I mean, everybody knows the block between Dean Avenue and Lofty Avenue because they know what's there now. Same thing when people talk about the Kohl's grocery store, they know exactly the big piece of property. So those are the kind of questions that people in Monona are going to understand right away. I know what you're talking about. If you say, I'm sorry, but unless you have a picture for them of the area, and you say between this street and this street, I think it's just, people are just going to pass right over that one.
Good
Okay.
point, good point.
I kind of agree with that comment. I think, trying to, I understand the concern about identifying these specific regions, but that really focuses people's attention on what area you're talking about. And I guess I don't see that, first of all, I think it highly unlikely we're going to get a huge consensus on anything. But I think if you're going to ask their judgments and get some input, let's ask it.
I agree. I don't see a problem with calling out, so people know what it is.
I think
Call out
it's,
the old Kohl's or Rubens.
but isn't it limiting? I mean, if we had a map that had those sections identified.
It's limiting, but what Sonia's called out are the major areas that are available for redevelopment. Other than that, it's like one business at a time as it changes hands. I mean, where are the other areas that we can really have an impact?
And they're already agreed upon redevelopment areas. They're in redevelopment area plans, so.
I mean, no matter what people respond to the other areas, what impact can we have in our comprehensive plan to change that? Whereas those particular areas are some of the few large tracts that maybe we can help craft and push one way or the other.
Can you reference, well, I guess this is right back to what Jim was saying, I mean, can you reference cross streets?
You can, but I agree with Dennis. I agree with Dennis. If you say that, or you could say the cross streets, the former Kohl's store on this intersection, but most people know where Rubens Furniture is. And they're like, oh, is that, what road is that? What's that side street that it's by?
But if you had the map that he's describing, you'd be able to look at it and say, oh, yeah.
And do you think people will get that when they see the map? We read plans and maps all the time. A lot of people look at that and they're not sure which side's up. That's not something they're used to reading. Where they are used, they're visual. They know where Rubens is.
Okay, this is what I'm thinking about. So I'm reading this, or one of my friends or relatives is the seminar. One of the questions was, what do you think would be best served? The Openwood Studios building on the corner of Industrial Drive in Southtown. I'm like,
You'd be upset.
what the hell?
I agree. I agree.
You know, I mean, I'm a property owner and my business is called out. Now, if you say between Southtown and Mangrove, you know, that's a little general and there's not much I can say about it, but.
Kohl's and Rubens don't exist anymore, and neither does Chief's Auto Parts. Well, that sort of exists.
Right, so,
Here's a map.
Yeah.
Brian?
I suggest sticking with the map because there are some other places that are not identified that I think are open and ready and have been mowed down. I mean, the former Jiffy Lube.
One little corner lot.
Well, it's one little corner lot with across the street apartment building, 2 apartment buildings next to a development. So that you have a stretch of land that's potential. I'm not going to worry a ton about how you go with it. I did like the recommendation by Rob on if there could be some drop-down options for each of these areas or site-specific, whichever way you go for that. And if there are some drop-downs of what are the options to select, but always provide the option for people to add general comment, I think we might get more people to know what are the possibilities.
Yeah, that's a good catch.
then I'll let you figure out the rest.
Pat?
I guess I'm thinking more in lines with Mr. Homburg and what Sonia brought forth. These areas have been called out in the redevelopment plan specifically to cite in some situations. They're public documents. I think Rubens would be more than happy to market their property this way, have people start thinking about a future use there. I think we need to be consistent with our plans, and this does that.
Where in here is the old Jiffy Lube?
It's not. I brought that up.
Right, but that's the point. I mean, there's areas that are open for redevelopment already that aren't on here. We're not asking.
That property owner has plans for that site?
And so does Rubens. He's got it rented to, you know.
I think we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this one.
Yep.
The reason that I selected these are because they've been targeted in the recent past.
I mean, there's a site across from Tresta that there's another area for redevelopment. What's the focus of CDA? What are they looking at? I mean, if we're going to identify certain areas, does CDA have areas that they would like input on? Or do we ask
The area across from Tresta is also recently purchased, and that property owner has plans for that location that have been brought forth. Nothing to this level yet, but the areas that are noted here have been specifically targeted by the CDA. That's why they're on this sheet.
Yes, Brian.
Hopefully I didn't say too much or too little there.
No?
So can there be a combination, maybe? I understand and I appreciate the idea that some of these sites, people are able to say, hey, the former Rubens building, people are like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think we also have a growing body of residents that might not have that history, and we want their input as well. So if you say the cheap auto parts, you say that to people that have been here for a period of time, they know exactly what you're talking about. If I brought that up to some of my newer neighbors in the neighborhood, they would not know where you are talking.
I wouldn't have known.
Well, isn't that what we're talking about? I mean, when we said add the streets.
Well, I also put the
Let's say the streets in this area of the city and call it the streets, and then maybe Prem, former Chief Auto Parts store. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm envisioning.
So if let's go back to the map idea. On the map, if there were those sorts of things identified on the map, then people would recognize what's there.
Yeah.
So that could be a compromise way of doing it.
Yeah.
So on the map, there's an area, but on there, we identify Rubens, former Chief Auto Parts, former whatever. So that people can identify where it is.
I like that idea.
That's good compromise.
Well, I just have another question.
No, you're not allowed. This is our turn.
So it says 1208 East Broadway in parentheses.
Right.
It's pretty specific.
That's pretty specific, and if you say instead of parentheses 12, I'd call out the address or the cross streets, and then parentheses, former Chief Auto Body, for those of us that have been here for 40 years and 30 years and 20 years, they all know where that site is, and it's been talked about on the former redevelopment, say the former Chief Auto Body site, and then on the paper recently, the Chief Auto Body site with this new apartment proposal. So I mean, it gets called by that name quite a bit.
Okay, so would we agree then?
Well, going back to what Brian said, his new, his mythic, his mythical new neighbor doesn't know that, doesn't know where Chief Auto Parts is, doesn't know where 1208 East Broadway is, but if they saw a map and saw this is the area, and said, I drive by that all the time, I know where that is, Shell gas station, Chief Auto Parts, they would know where that is because they've driven by it.
Okay, so to summarize then,
Good.
and see if we agree, we're going to keep questions 4 through 10, and we're not necessarily going to change them to segments of Monona Drive, but we're going to, so number 8 would be worded, what do you think is the best use for, like the vacant site on East Broadway, at 1208 East Broadway, parentheses, Chief Auto Parts site, and then also have a map.
Have them,
And then-
call it something on the map so they can cross-reference on the map.
And a drop-down menu with a couple of different uses listed. Did I get it wrong?
You have a drop
I
down
don't
on
agree
the
with
paper
the,
one then too?
I don't agree with the drop down. I think you're gonna plant seeds instead of letting people express their ideas.
Well, you can't have consistency between the paper one and the online one if you put different things in
Right.
both. We need consistency no matter what we do on the survey. So whatever we do, it has to be on both.
It could-
You're
yeah.
planning on doing paper and online, correct? That's what I'd heard last time. If that's
Yeah.
the case, they have to be identical surveys, don't they?
Well, and on here, the drop-down menu in paper could be multiple choice.
Okay.
And they could select one.
I like multiple choice because it's quantifiable and easy to glean data from that.
Okay.
I think you can get a lot of information from just comments as well. I think it's a lot harder to use.
You will have other then so that the creative people can put it in there.
Yep. 8 lines.
Did I get the first part right on we're not doing components of Monona Drive? We're going to keep these questions?
You've got targeted areas, but I think what we're talking about is not to call out a specific business, to identify it as an area on a map. The map would show that Rubens used to be here, Chief Auto Parts used to be here. They can cross-reference it and look at it.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yep.
It's just like Google. It's like Google. You just pull it on Google, you get in close enough, and the name of the business pops up in white letters. Amazing.
I'm glad you're going to do this because I don't have any idea what it's going to look like right now.
It'll be perfect.
Wait till we get to housing. No.
Are we, do we want to go to housing?
I think Sonia'd like to work on this a little more first.
No.
I'm kidding. She'd like to
Let's
leave.
go to housing. Any comments on the housing section?
I think we can delete number 11 because we ask it at the end.
Okay.
Number 12, I think we should indicate either gross or net. 13, this question kind of gives you the impression that if you're 55 or older, that you want to move into one of these. I'm not sure if the question's worded in a way that is gathering the information that we want for that piece. And number 14, the question I asked myself after reading this question is, what is it that we're trying to learn using this table format for the housing stock? And that was it for housing.
Others? I guess we focus on the 55 and older, but do we do the opposite end, or do we have something if they're, a young family type of questionnaire to get what's important to them, what they feel, what housing stock or something that may be missing? I don't know how we do that, but
Yeah, there's really just 2 options, I would think, aren't there?
either under 55 or...
Yeah, I mean, you have houses or apartments or condos.
Well, because 55 and older, you can, you can have facilities that are just for that. Or maybe 14 answers that.
If we're capturing their age at the end of the survey, does 13 really need to exist in that? Because you would have the cross-reference of a different question to be the variable. That maybe then the question is really just about 14. Because if the person is a 55 or older, you already have that answered by the demographic question at the end. Unless you're asking specifically, if you're 55 and older, are you looking to move into something different than a single residence? If that's what we want to answer, then we need 13, but worded differently.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
That's what I would ask, say.
So what, the difference between 13 and 14, is there's there's nursing home, CBRF, are not in 14, so if we added those,
No, I think I agree with him. 13's fine, it just needs to be worded a little differently. It needs to be worded about what type of facilities for 55 and older do you feel are lacking, or, because there's a lot of facilities that can be built and deed restricted to 55 and older, so I think the question's good, it just needs to just be reworded a little bit.
Would agree.
I realize I'm the only one on this commission that's 55 or older. But my option's not on there.
It's other.
Stay home.
I'd let people decide what a senior citizen, I'm serious, a senior citizen is for themselves, and I'd get rid of the age.
Yeah, just take out the first sentence. What type of housing would you prefer to be built in Monona? Then we address everybody, the young people, the old people, the middle people.
so are you suggesting to get rid of 13?
No, I'd just take out the first sentence.
Everybody.
Open it up to everybody. Just start,
You are a human.
which type of housing would you prefer to be built in Monona?
Or which type of senior housing, because this
Senior
question
housing, I
really
think-
reflects senior housing. You don't have to be 55 to say what type of senior housing you think is lacking. Which type of senior housing, 55 and older? Because a lot of that's a special housing type that is deed restricted for that use. So that's where I'm talking about just rewording it a little bit.
I like the way you're saying it, because then at 45 and I have senior parents and I'm about to address this, I have an opportunity to express myself.
That housing type is underbuilt or something for some
Yeah.
reason. You see a real lack of the assisted housing or a nursing home per se. You don't see that in Monona. You say, boy, we could really use that. I mean, I think it's a great question. It just reworded it a
Just
little
open it
bit.
up to everybody.
Oh, yeah,
So-
I think that was intent, wasn't it? This,
So 13 would read, which type of senior housing would you prefer to be built in Monona?
Yes.
if any. There could be none, too. Maybe people think there's enough.
Make that an option.
We want
That
to
should be an
include
option.
everybody.
Make that an option.
Yeah.
So would it be what type of additional senior housing?
Correct.
Looks good.
Any other comments on housing?
15 just needs a space to write in.
That's other is there, isn't it?
Huh?
15 is other.
Oh, if you wanted to put what that other is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I see what you mean.
Just for
line, because I wouldn't be good enough.
Anything else on housing? Going once, going twice? Transportation. Feedback on transportation.
Roselawn looks really nice. City staff.
It's great timing, love it.
Dean Avenue's wonderful. Mr. Kugel's happy. Brian?
So 17, I think, is just the big kind of went out there, and I'm trying to figure out a way to provide feedback without making it more complicated. And I know the term walkable and walkability has many different understandings and definitions of what that entails, and
Mhm.
that's the fear of putting something like that on there unless you operationalize it so people are at least answering the question the same way.
Mhm.
When I look at some of these items that are listed, some make perfect sense to me and then others make less. So when I get to bicycle routes, for example, if the question is only to capture what my satisfaction is with the bicycle routes, what I have to answer is the lake loop. But the bicycle route is much wider for other usage. So that wouldn't capture the idea of just general biking in my neighborhood or biking my kids to school. So I'm not sure how to capture more of that. I'm not sure if it's multiple uses for the street, if there's a way to ask that question, because I think that's where the sidewalk / walkability question comes
Right.
from. It'd be tough to take any answers that we get about sidewalks and make use of that information. Because if you said, do I need a sidewalk down, Midmore where I live, I would say no, because the street's significantly wide and it allows what I would consider fairly safe travel on the road. But I don't know how to capture that well here.
So you're saying like bicycle route, just using the term route, it restricts it to the lake loop, when what I think we're asking is
Biking in the whole town.
Bicycle accommodation.
bicycle
Facilities.
ability, is that a word?
It is now.
Can planning commission make up words?
Absolutely, yeah.
Bicycle.
Ask our wordsmith down here. He's a trained wordsmith.
Sounds great.
Is that what you're getting at, Frank? Yeah, you're just like, is Monona good for bikes, is Monona?
What if instead of
Bicycle
routes-
friendly?
What if instead of routes you said
Yeah.
bike paths / corridors? Because really anywhere you bike, you're biking some corridor. It might be a road, it might be a path. I think it's an important question, but it'd be nice to get feedback on it. I agree, routes makes me think of, we don't have many bike routes in Monona, but we do have corridors. They happen to be right on the
Bicycle
roads for a lot of
friendly.
places.
Route facilities.
I think it's bike facilities is a technical term that we're looking for, and that covers everything.
Well,
Facilities.
it doesn't, because I bike in Monona all the time. I bike down city streets, and that's not, is
That's
that a bike
bicycle
facility?
yeah.
It would include lanes, routes, paths, bike boxes,
everybody would-
bike boulevard.
Okay.
See that on
I'm out of
survey.
School in city planning, bike facilities, I'm like, does Monona have bike, is that where you store your bike?
Yeah.
I think they use it.
Facility is a structure to me.
Well, it can be.
I think they use bikeability
I
and
know,
walkability.
that's my point.
I mean, I hear that a lot, bikeability and walkability. And I don't know if those are real terms, but when I know what bikeability is, can I bike around this town, feel pretty safe doing it? And I walk around the town and feel safe doing it. Some people may say, for walkability, say, I'm not very satisfied, I'm afraid to walk onto city streets because there are no sidewalks.
Walkability, I think, overcomes your concern about sidewalks,
Yeah.
right? Would you,
Yeah.
is bikeability something that,
I don't know if that's a term or not.
You can
Accessibility.
wordsmith it however you want, but if you use terms like bike facility, throw a definition up there somewhere.
yeah, or define it, because, yeah.
With a map.
I like the walkability, bikeability. Say bikeability second, because everybody gets walkability.
Okay. What about transit? Buses, I mean, I don't know. It's just our usage seems to be continually dropping.
I don't think it could drop anymore.
I know it.
Well, it asks the question, because some people might say, well, what you're offering now isn't what we need, and so it gives them an opportunity to express if they want something else.
So if we've got a specific question regarding bus transit,
Busability.
busability, okay. Close, busability. But find asking people, if you're not using it, why not? I mean,
How about any question that they indicate dissatisfied or very dissatisfied, that we ask, we probe for additional comment?
there you go. That's a good point.
I mean, they can always, they have the general to be able to offer anything they want, but I think specifically you want to know, if you're dissatisfied with parking, tell me more about that, because I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
So could we capture that with one question? Like, if you answered dissatisfied on any question, please explain.
Yes.
Good idea.
Anything else on transportation? general. Okay. Tell me what we're doing well, tell me what we're not doing well, I like it. And I guess the last two, and then tell us about yourself. Brian?
Demographics, the only thing that, underneath number 3, do you own or rent?
Mm-hmm.
It's always struck me as why rent and own for condominium get lumped together. I think it should be own a home, A, B, own a condominium,
Mm-hmm.
and then go on to the rental. Unless there's a reason that they're linked together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you really don't, and you don't need, I agree, you don't need rent a condominium in there. I mean, that's,
That's an apartment.
yeah.
What's other in number 2?
Yeah.
For,
Deceased?
yeah. Don't could be an option though. If you don't live in Monona, because in question 5, you give the option that some people, like business owners, might be filling this out.
Yeah.
So,
That'd be good to know that you don't live here.
That would be good one.
Any other comments? Mr. Humbert?
I think I asked this last time, I don't remember what you said, but do we have good information for adequacy of community facilities? Did you say, Pat, we had that on some other survey, or, I mean, like, people are satisfied with city facilities? I don't mean just parks, I mean city hall, the pool, the library, all that stuff. We have information on that, we don't need to be redundant? Is that what
Well,
you
that
told
was
me?
addressed, and I believe specifically during the strategic plan, we addressed community center most of all, because that's a facility that has received a lot of criticism recently. But in terms of like city hall, fire, police,
Right, that's what I was thinking.
library, public works, we didn't ask those questions, but
Would they have any purpose
know
in
if
a
they would have an
we're doing it for a comprehensive plan, where there be any purpose? What if, for example, all our volunteer firefighters that filled out the survey wanted to talk about our fire facilities? Should they have a forum to tell us how great they are?
yeah, and I think we're in the process of evaluating that at
Okay.
the staff and the council level, so I don't think that's something we need
understand.
to address in the survey.
The only reason I ask is we're doing this for a comprehensive plan. If it's information we need for a comprehensive plan, we're doing one survey.
General, under general, what things do you like best about Monona? So if you got a comment about that, or what do you like least about Monona? If you've
What's
got a beef
lacking,
about the
put it
community
in there.
center that you're angry about, or whatever, you can put it down there. So I think there's some open-ended questions there that people can use. Anything else? If not, let's move to 7B, which is staff report regarding status of development project proposals. Sonia or Pat?
Next meeting is September 22nd, and then we have an extra Monday in September, so a couple weeks before the October 13th meeting. We have plans for a garage in the multifamily district on North Monona Drive, and Global Presence will be back with their request for approval. And then I did include the draft minutes from the CDA meeting, which occurred the day after the Plan Commission review of Royal Capital Group, so you have that information on how the discussion went there. And that's it.
Thank you. C, any requests for information? Mr. Humbert?
One, I see a lot of the recent projects we approved breaking ground or going. I haven't seen anything on Gunderson. Is there a status there?
I think I just received their checks for their erosion control permits today, which they were still finishing up.
Okay, so they're still planning on going ahead.
Yep.
Right.
Anything else? Seeing none, is there a motion? Move adjournment. Is there a second? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
You know, you have to have it.
Brian wasn't ready.
Mr. Elski? Yeah. Good.
I know, that was.